Hi everyone, welcome back. I am Juliana and today I'm going to show you how we can use visual calculations in Power BI to build S-curves or any other cumulative total that it has to be until a certain date. When I first came across visual calculations, I think it was during preview mode a while ago, I thought, oh, that's not going to help me in absolutely anything. And for the past couple of months, I have decided to put away that thought and look into what we can actually build. And I did a course and I watched some tutorials, and I must say that I'm glad I gave it a go. So I also figure out a way that we can't build our S curves. And it's funny because a while ago, someone asked me, oh, but there is a way to do it without too much DAX. Can we do it a bit easier for who is beginning? And I said, no, and I was mistaken. So I'm going to show you now so you can see this S curve. This is done. We still have to have some DAX, but it's much less and it's much more simpler. And I'm going to show you how to do it now. So the data model that I have here is a calendar table with consecutive days listed. And I also have my fact table with the schedule. And if you're not aware how it works, I'm going to put a link on the video description. But data that we gather from scheduling applications such as Primavera P6, you may have more than one date field. And the example that I have the baseline start date, the baseline finish date, and then I have the forecast start date and the forecast end date. And we can only have one active relationship between the calendar table and the fact. So the other three will be inactive. And to make sure that Power BI uses that relationship, we have to use a function called use relationship. So in this example that I have, the active relationship, it is between the baseline start and the forecast start is inactive. And we're going to build the S-curve for the baseline start and forecast. So we do have to have some DAX, but they are much, much simpler. So the first DAX that I have is counting the activities that have started. So based on the baseline, it's just a count A function that I have here, this measure. And the count A will count all non-blank rows for that specific column. Now, when we go to the count of actual activities, we need to force Power BI to use the relationship with the calendar table. And here is the measure that I create. So what I'm doing here, I am counting all the rows for the forecast start that is before the reporting date. So my report has a cutoff date. And so that is why I have these. And I have here the function use relationship. And I'm telling Power BI to use the relationship between my fact schedule with the column forecast start and the dimension date with the column date. So that will count the rows that have on the forecast start column until the current date or the reporting date or cutoff date, whatever you want to call it. So these are the two measures that I have to create. So let's now go back. I'm going to leave here and I'm going to create a new tab so we can build it from scratch. And you're going to see how easy it is. So here I have my line chart. It's formatted and I already added the reporting date. So the reporting date in this case is just also a measure that I hard coded. I just forced the date to be 31st of August 2025. You can have the reporting date the way that you want to. In this case, I just wanted to show a quick example so you may have calculated in a different way. So for visual calculations, it only works for fields that are existing in your visualization. So for that, we're going to use the count of the baseline start, the count of the actually started, so we can create the cumulative totals. And we're also going to need the reporting date, the measure with the reporting date, because that is going to be used on the cumulative total for the actuals to only sum up to the reporting date. It doesn't keep going, otherwise you would have a flat line. And I'm going to show you what I mean. So I'm going to add here my reporting date and my tooltips. I'm going to add the count of activities baseline start on the y-axis and the count of activities actually started on my y-axis as well. And my x-axis, I just have the end of the month. So what can we do now? Well, if we go here to my home tab, there is the option of new visual calculation. So I'm going to click in that. So it will first show all the fields that you have, which is here my counts and my reporting date. And we're going to create the first calculation, and there are some templates. So if you click here on the FX, these are the templates, and we're going to use the running sum. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to rename. I'm going to call it cumulative baseline. And then this function is already there. You don't need to change. The only thing you have to change is the field, which is here. And it has to be one of the fields that we added on the build visual pane. So the one that we're going to use then is the baseline start. And I'm going to click here, commit, and the calculation is done. So you can see here the orange line on the top. Next, let's create now the cumulative sum for the actuals without taking into consideration the reporting date. You're going to see what happens. So let's create now a new running sum. And it's going to be the, let's call it cumulative. And let's use the field count of activities actual status. So let's commit. So you have here the purple line. So you see that after the reporting date, because there is nothing else happening, it's going to be a flat line, and that's not real, that's not right. So we have to make sure that the count of our actual line only goes until the reporting date. And we can also do that through the visual calculation. So let's add here another calculation. It's going to be another running sum. And I'm going to call it cumulative actual underscore. Let's start with an if statement that says that if our end of month is less or equal to the reporting date, then we're going to have the running sum. Else we want to have blank. So that's here what we have to do. So let's start with if. Now the way the visual calculations work, we're going to do the calculation based on the values. So we're going to add here values and the field that we want, which is the end of the month. So if the end of the month is less or equal to the reporting date, which is here, we wouldn't be able to add the reporting date if it wasn't added on the visual. So that's why it is on the tooltips. And then I'm going to show you how we're going to handle those fields that we don't actually want to see. So after doing that, we want to have the running sum. So if that conditional is true, I'm going to do the running sum on the field that is the count of the actual started. And then else, I want to return blank. And then we close our bracket. Let's commit. So now you can see here, which is the pink line. So the pink line does indeed stop on the actual reporting date. So let's just tidy up here. So we don't want these cumulative actual here. Let's remove. We don't want to see the tooltips where it says reporting date. So if you look here on the pane, we can hide from visual. So let's hide that. We also do not want to have the count, the in-month count, so these lines here. So what we can do, we can hide, or you can give the count on the tooltip. So we can drag these to the tooltips. And then all we have to do now is just rename. So let's count these as monthly baseline start. And then we can call the second one monthly actual start. So we can hit enter, and then when we hover over, we're going to have the cumulative total, and we're also going to have the monthly baseline. But we need to format the type. So we created these two running sums, and we need to format the data type. So let's go to the format pane. Let's select here data, and then apply settings to. Let's first go to the cumulative baseline. And we don't want decimal, we want just whole number. And we're going to do the same for the cumulative actual. Let's change the data type to whole. There we go. So now when we hover over, we can also use the thousand separated for both of them. So let's go back to the cumulative baseline. So now when we hover over, we're going to see here the cumulative baseline, and it's a whole number with the thousand separator. And the same for the cumulative actual. Let's just rename these cumulative actual. We actually don't need these on this call. Let's just remove it and connect. So once we finish creating the calculations with these window that is specifically for visual calculations, we can click here back to report. And we have our S-curve with less DAX, so less need to understand how to create the cumulative totals using complex DAX. And we have that just built in within the visual in a much simpler way. And of course, we can just give a bit of a format here. Let's go to lines. I like to use the baseline dashed and gray. And then I'm going to my cumulative actual, and then I'm going to change the color. So if you look, these visual here that was created with visual calculations, and the first tab, so this one I created with the DAX. So let's see the DAX. This is the DAX count, to create the cumulative count of the actual started, and the DAX for the baseline started as well. So we didn't have to create those two. They are built within visual calculations. Of course, you have to understand that when we create those visual calculations, they cannot be reused across other visualizations. So you have to consider, is it worth just doing it once, my visual calculation, or am I going to be using those values across my report? Then, of course, you have to think in actually creating the DAX. And of course, if you don't, this is also a very good way to not have all the measures stacked and make things quite confusing depending on how much a report grows, or how much you add to that report. So I created these S-curve, baseline start and baseline finish, which is a bit more complex because there are 4 columns with dates in the data source. But I'm going to show you a much simpler example now. So it's also going to be a cumulative sum, but that is for earned value. So what was the planned value and the earned value. And because the data is structured, so I'm going to show you what the data is. We only have 1 column with the month. So we don't need to worry about having the use relationship. So let's duplicate this again. I'm going to remove all the visualizations, and then let's go to the facts value and management. So what I have here that you can do is, like, I just created a sum. So this is my sum for plan value. And this is my sum for earned value. So there is nothing there. It's just literally using the sum function. So let's add these 2 functions. Let's add on the tooltips. And now let's see how we can create the cumulative total for the earned value and plan value, which will also build an S-curve. So let's go back to home and then new visual calculation. Again, I have to keep my reporting date so that when I create this cumulative sum from the earned value, so the actual values, it will only go until the reporting date or the cutoff date. It's not going to continue as a straight line. So for this example, we're going to go back to the templates and use the running sum. And this is going to be cumulative plan value. And it will be the running sum of my plan value. There we go. Let's just commit. Just remove these zeros from the, just go back to the report. We actually zeros here. So now let's go back to create another visual calculation because we have the plan value, but we also have to create this cumulative sum from the earned value. So I'm going to go back to the template, running sum. It will be cumulative earned value. Let's do this first. So let's not add the reporting date and see what happens. So we don't want these to happen. I think these we don't have much data in here. So let's change the reporting month to something that makes a bit more sense. Let's put it to 31st of March. So if I go back here on my reporting date, get out of here, go back, reporting date, let's put, I was on the 31st of March. So now let's go back to edit our earn value. So let's right click and then edit calculation. And we're going to do the same if statement that we created on the previous S-curve. So we're going to start the if on my end of the month is less or equal to a reporting date. Then I want to do the running sum. Oops, it's missing a bracket here. There we go. Then I want to do the running sum of my earned value. Else, I want it to be blank. Let's commit. And there we go. We have cumulative earned value and earned value. In this case, we didn't even have to create the sum, the explicit measure for the sum of earned value and planned value. We could have used the implicit measure because Power BI allows you to do that. So you could pretty much just have dragged the earned value across as well as the planned value. Let's just not forget to format. In this case, we want to format as currency. So I'm going to go back to the format pane. And for the cumulative planned value, data type should be decimal, and then format we can put as currency. And you can choose the currency format. I'm going to leave it as British pounds. And I want to keep the 1,000 separators. Let's do the same for earned value. Let's format it as currency as well. And I'll leave it as pounds with the 1,000 separators. So when you hover over now, you have the formatted values. So that's it from this video. I wanted to show you that you can also make use of visual calculations to build S-curves or any cumulative values to a certain date. I hope you liked this video, and if you actually use this option of visual calculations, let me know how it goes. Thanks a lot for watching. If you have not subscribed yet, make sure you do. It's goodbye from me now, and see you on the next video.